Moonshiners, hello to you all. Friends, we continue our dive, our adventure into the world of Moonshine. And we've reached what I consider the most important part, pages. We've already looked at pages in the context of resources, but let's emphasize this again. Everything in Moonshine, the dashboard, any resource when you go to the index page, the form page, the detail page, if it exists, the profile, all of these are pages. That is, not resources, but pages, they are the foundation. If we go to any resource, for example, Moonshine user resource, and try to go to pages, we'll see inside that a resource is essentially a grouping of pages. If we're talking about resources, about CRUD resources that come out of the box, they have 3 pages. Index page, where we have a table and a list, form page, for creation and updating, and detail page, a page for grouping. There are pages and a set of CRUD methods that will be available within the pages. We've grouped a set of CRUD pages into one resource. If we go back to layout and look at the menu, we have a filler here. But essentially, what filler represents is that under the hood, the getURL method will be called, and that's it. Going deeper, getURL is simply the first page, index page, and we'll get its URL. Okay, so we understand that the foundation is pages, and they can exist outside of resources. A resource simply groups them. You can create your own pages, which is what we'll do now, and you can render them not only within the admin panel but also in your controllers, or anywhere else. Okay, let's talk. Let's move to the documentation and start with the first command. But before we execute it, we can also read the informational alerts below. They tell us that after you create a page through the console command, it will automatically be registered in the service provider, just like resources. If you add new pages, you need to register them here. Except for the pages that are part of resources. If a resource has a set of pages inside, as we've seen, index, form, and detail, or some other set, they will automatically register themselves from here, and you shouldn't duplicate them. But why am I emphasizing this again? In Moonshine 3.7, an interesting feature appeared. You can stop registering resources and pages manually and simply call the autoload method. This way, Moonshine will go through all the pages and resources in the Moonshine directory. Or, if you have multiple modules, you can pass a namespace to autoload within different providers from different modules and load them from different directories. Under the hood, Composer's autoload will be used, what's already loaded through Composer. So, if you run PHP Artisan Optimize when deploying to production, you'll see that Moonshine will cache everything immediately. And Moonshine will cache this entire autoload, so we won't lose performance. Okay, and don't forget that if you're working locally and constantly running Optimize, then when creating new resources or pages, you'll also need to call Composer dump autoload. Otherwise, Moonshine simply won't find the new classes you're adding. Okay, in local development, we don't need this, so let's run PHP Artisan Optimize clear so it doesn't interfere, and we'll move on. Okay, we've set up autoload. If we go back to the admin panel and refresh the page, we'll see that nothing has changed. We've automatically registered everything. But at the same time, all our resources and pages continue to work as before. So, we can skip this step. Now, let's finally add a page. Okay, let's go back, run the command php artisan moonshine page and name it MyPage. Let's make it a simple page. Here, we're given a choice. It's either a simple page, custom, or one of the CRUD pages we've already seen in the resource. You can also create, for example, an index page, a form page, or a detail page. Take a specific resource, override the pages method, and replace only one of the pages, index, form, or add another one within the resource. That is, instead of creating a resource with a choice of types for different pages, you can replace one of them during the process. We don't need this right now, so we'll just make it custom. Okay, it appears in pages, and here's our MyPage. Okay, let's go back, refresh the page, and nothing has happened because we haven't added it to the menu. But if we go to page, MyPage, we'll get the error I mentioned earlier. We've created a new class. We have autoload enabled, but we haven't run Composer dump autoload, so Composer hasn't loaded this class yet. After that, everything will be fine, so you need to remember this when working with autoload. If you're working with manual registration, you manually add MyPage class here, and you don't need to worry about it. As an option, during development, you'll use manual page registration, and before deploying to production, you'll set up auto-load, and then it will all be handled at the CI/CD level. Okay, we've created the page. It's available. It's empty, but it's not in the menu. We already know how to work with the menu. Let's go to MoonShine Layout and create another menu item. Let's call it MyPage, and the filler will simply be MyPage class. Okay, let's go back, refresh the page, and now our page is there. As for auto-load, friends, there's also a method right here, auto-load menu. You can also automatically load the entire menu. But we won't cover this in this guide because, as you can see, all pages from the directory have been loaded, dashboard, profile, 404, and login page, since they're present here in the directory. And you'll need to customize the menu directly through classes. For example, you definitely don't need login page, so you'll need to add skip menu attributes. After that, you'll go back, and this menu item will be gone. You can also group your menu items, add icons, add can see for authorization, add order to sort them in the desired order. All of this will be available to you, but through page attributes. In this guide, we won't set up auto load here, so we can work with the menu again, so we'll leave it as is. Let's go back, and we see that we have MyPage, and it's displayed. Let's go back to the documentation and see what else is interesting here. We immediately see that we can change the title. Yes, we specified the class name when creating it, but let's say we're not satisfied with that, and we can change it right here, MyPage. Okay, let's go back, refresh the page, and the title has changed. Okay, we've figured that out. We see the same thing in the documentation, and the main thing that the page itself represents is a set of components. We've already seen these components when we constructed the template, when we filled out resource fields in the form. The same thing is present here. You can implement the page using components however you like. And we've already worked with the template. We have a template. Let's go to build. Here's what it looks like. We have components, we go lower, lower, and here we have the content area, where we load the page and all the components. So, everything except this content part is the layout, also built on components, and here we have the page components. This is the filling that we can configure. Also, within each page, we can change the template. For example, let's set a layout. We don't have any yet, we haven't created any. Let's take something from what's under the hood of MoonShine. An empty layout, like this. Let's go back, refresh the page, and we'll see that the template has changed, but it's completely empty. And we'll notice that something changes only if we add new components. And here we see it's completely empty. There's a title in the corner, but no background, nothing. That is, the template is just HTML, head, and an empty body. And from the lesson on templates, we know that you can add as many templates as you want. For this page, you can have a completely different template, with a different structure, and you can specify it through properties like this. Okay, let's go back, refresh the page. We also see breadcrumbs, and they're immediately available to us from the skeleton of the formatted page. Let's add something else here. Let's say foo. It doesn't matter. Let's go back, refresh the page, and we see that an item has been added to the breadcrumbs. You can configure breadcrumbs for each page as you like. We don't need this now, we're generally covering pages and moving on. An interesting point is the modify layout modifier. Right from the page, you can call modify layout and change something for this page. As in this example, we simply change the title and description. You can also add sections to your template. And within the page, you can change something, add components, remove them, change the state of the layout, and thus, within one page, things will change. Alias, we've covered this when we looked at resources. It's what appears in the URL. By default, it's MyPage, which is our class in kebab case, but using this property, you can specify it as you like. Even though our class is called MyPage, the alias will be whatever you set. Now, this is an interesting point. We'll pay attention to it, but a bit later. Let's go back to the page and return to its component block. Let's spend some time here and play around. Let's do the following. Let's create a grid. Okay, let's make it a column. Inside, let's add a box. In the first box, let's create a form builder. For example, let's add a text field. Title, let's add a select field. country. And let's add a few options. Let's do it like this. And let's fill this form with some data right away. Fill. Like this. And let's add another column. Let's split them a bit. Let's make the grid 12 columns, one with 6 and the other with 6, half and half. Okay, here, let's add second. And instead of a form, let's place a table, TableBuilder. Make. Again with fields. Let's not overthink it, let's just use the same fields, the same data, but in a table. Here, we'll have an array with multiple elements. Let's do it like this. Hello, world. 1. Okay, let's go back, refresh the page, and we'll see that the page has changed. We have a form on the left and a table on the right. And in this way, you can configure pages however you like. Not just with primitive data, nothing stops you from adding, for example, another column. Or let's make it 12 columns, and let's add users. Let's quickly see how this looks. Okay, that works. And in this case, we'll output the following. Items will be user. Query. Get. Yes, we have users, but here we'll have a collection of models. And TableBuilder, FormBuilder, by default, works with primitives. To make them work with other types, you need to add cast. And as for models, Laravel already has a cast for models under the hood. It's called ModelCaster, and all you need to do is specify what we're casting, user, class. Okay, here, let's add ID. And let's add email. And, I think, there's a name field in users. Okay, let's go back, refresh the page, and we'll see that the table is now implemented based on models, based on all users. Here they are, displayed, and we're working with them. We're customizing the page as we like. Let's add a virtual field that doesn't exist, something like icon. And let's format it. Here, we'll have a user, which we won't need, so let's just add an icon. Icon. Okay, make. Let's choose an icon. Let's make it user, and let's also set a color to play around. Color, let's make it primary. Okay, let's go back, refresh the page, and we'll see that a column with icons has appeared. This is an important part to pay attention to in MoonShine. You're not tied to resource pages that dictate what's a table, what's a button. You can change all of this to suit your needs. Under the hood, it's the same page. If you don't believe me, let's take a look. Let's open index page inside MoonShine. And we'll see that it's a simple page, but it inherits CRUD. It already has the basic structure, the same title, which is taken from the resource, the same components, but they're layered for your convenience. There's a top layer with metric components. There's the main layer with buttons at the top, query tags, items components. By default, what do we have here? TableBuilder, here it is. The same table we worked with, but it's already filled with everything from the resource. The resource serves as a group of ready-made methods so that pages simply call them and get populated. And this way, you can take this index page, publish it, and completely customize it. Not just the content, but the entire template. This is important. Now, another important knowledge we'll gain, rendering pages. The documentation shows us that pages perform rendering directly in the controller. Under the hood, MoonShine has a page controller, which looks like this, just a few lines. And you can do the same in your controllers. If you don't believe me, let's try it. First, let's see if we have any controllers. No. Let's create one, make controller. Let's call it home controller. Okay, let's open our routes, web PHP, and replace the welcome page with home controller, class. Okay, let's go back, go to the home page, not the admin panel, but the main page. We'll see an error because our controller doesn't have an invoke method. Yes, let's add the invoke method. And here, we'll inject our MyPage. We'll specify that we're returning it. And then, return $page. Let's go back, refresh the page, and voila, on the home page, we see the same page. You can perform rendering in your controllers. The only thing you'll notice in the documentation is that loaded needs to be called so that the page understands it's actually loaded, not just an instance created. It needs to fully load, including assets. This is the most important part. After loaded, assets will also be added, so always include this method. I think in 99% of cases, you'll need it. Okay, everything works the same way, but we've understood how it looks. We also see an example with Fortify, and here we're working not through DI but through the container. You can do the same. If you don't have access to DI, you can do app MyPage class. Go back, refresh the page, and everything will continue to work. Okay, friends, let's move on through the documentation. You can also access the page's lifecycle, certain stages. As in this case, this method will be called before render. For example, you have pages, maybe they're in packages, maybe they're published pages from MoonShine, and you want to integrate and do something before render. For example, as in this case, check user permissions and throw a 403 error. This method can be useful. Next, friends. Under the hood, as I've already told you, there's a page controller, which, as I initially showed, performs rendering of pages. But you might have a situation where you don't need to render a page, but instead, for example, do a redirect. You can do this through modify response. And this is shown here. We've seen the lifecycle in the context of resources. The same thing, to some extent, is present in pages. There's onload. This is when the page is currently active. So, right now, my page is not onload. When we navigate to it, it's onload. And here, we can do something directly. For example, add assets or integrate components if it's a package. In general, anything you want. Here, they explain how to create a link to a page, but they show it in the context of a resource. And we're currently working without a resource. I think the documentation needs to expand on this and show a few more examples of how to interact with links through pages. But actually, I'll quickly show you this now. If you're working in a resource, let's go back to the resource, to the routes section. We haven't covered this yet, so let's go through it. From the resource, there's a full, large example provided on how to work with URLs. Get URL, we've figured that out. And we immediately see that this is the first page of the resource. In most cases, it's the index page. Accordingly, the URL will look like this: admin, resource, resource URI, page URI, aliases. Get route. Here, you get automatic routes. For example, under the hood, you can even do this. Go here and run PHP artisan route list. And you'll see various pages under the resource. They have names like crud.massDelete, crud.index, crud.store. And if you call getRoute from the resource, you'll need to specify the route starting from crud. You don't need to include MoonShine, like crud.create in this method. And accordingly, any parameters you pass, and this way, you can quickly get a link for deleting a record, creating, updating, and so on. But there are even faster ways. When you simply pass getPage URL and then index page, form page, all the pages inside your resource. Not just external, like our MyPage now, which isn't tied to a resource, but specifically in the context of a resource, since the URL will still include resource, user resource. And then the page you choose, form page, index page, or a new one if you add it to the pages method. Plus, there's a lot of sugar in the resource. When you don't need to pass index page, you can simply say get index page URL and then pass query parameters. Get form page URL and pass an ID or a model. Get detail page URL. All for your convenience, to quickly get the URL. We haven't covered fragments and async methods yet, but they're also present here. That is, the most frequently used links can be generated with these sugar methods. I also showed you getRoute. Here, there are examples. For instance, crud.update. We don't specify MoonShine, but we specify everything else and pass additional parameters. As you can see, all the main CRUD operations are also represented here. Now, the next point, which we should definitely move to the documentation in the pages section, is the topage helper, to quickly get the page URL. Let's play with this. Let's go back to home controller and do some dumping here. First, let's just do dd, get URL, the same get URL. If we go back, this is our home page. Let's refresh the page, and we'll see the URL admin, page, MyPage. If we didn't have the instance here directly, we could do it through the container. And we'd get the same thing, but we've seen the helper, let's use it, TableBuilder. Okay, let's go back, refresh the page, and it's the same link. If we're talking about the TableBuilder helper, for custom pages without a resource, you just pass the resource. Then, you might need parameters, these are query parameters. If it's a page inside a resource, you also pass the resource, and the link will be formed considering the resource. In this helper, we see other examples. Just with a page, within a resource, you don't even need to pass it, MoonShine will still understand which resource it's tied to if it's unique. If it's not just an index page under the hood, it will also build the URL. And returning to the resource, these are interesting methods that I think you'll work with. This is checking where exactly you are. As you can see, right in the MoonShine user resource, for example, form page, you can build conditions here. If it is update form page, meaning you're in the edit mode, or create, you're in the add mode. Or you're just on form page, but that's obvious, always in form fields, form page, you can build additional conditions. These are interesting points. Friends, it's no coincidence that we've smoothly moved to the resource. Let's go back, refresh our memory about resource pages, and see that we have 3 pages there that you can completely override. And all the information about these CRUD pages. How to work if it's a CRUD page, and directly through it, you declare fields, change the main page component, and so on. All of this is indicated here. But I'd also like to talk about the filters section. I think you'll often work with filters. Let's go back to the admin panel. Let's go to users, to administrators, and we'll see the filters button, thanks to which we can filter records. Let's take name, change it a bit, and see that the record doesn't exist, so the filtering didn't work. Let's go back, it's appeared. And with these filters, you can also customize and add to them. The basis of filters is simple fields, the same fields that are present in the admin panel. Almost all of them can be used, but there's a small nuance. Let's talk about it now. For example, we have the email field, okay, let's add a text field, and we have the user's name. Okay, let's go back, refresh the page, and we'll see that name has also appeared. And let's make admin in the name field, and do a search. And we'll see that we found the record. If we look at the query, we'll see that name is text, and by default, it works with like. For example, if you don't need this behavior, or you have a text filter, but you want to completely change the query to your liking, this is a common occurrence. Let's see how this works. When you encounter fields, you'll look at their lifecycle. And within the lifecycle, you'll see that when a field is saved inside a form, the apply method is called. And this apply method is what you can configure for yourself, both in forms and in filters. That is, when this field is applied inside a form. And if it's just a CRUD page, then here in the callback, the first parameter will be the model you're saving. But if you're in the context of filters, here you'll have a query builder, and you can work with it too. Let's take a look and just do query builder. Let's go back, we have something here, we'll get an error because of async. Let's turn off async for now. Okay, and we'll see that we have a builder here, and we can configure it however we like. Let's go back, remove the dumping, and instead do the following, qwhere, and what we need here, let's say name. But this could also be where has or anything else, and the second parameter in the callback will be the value that came from the request. Okay, so now we don't have like, but we have an exact match. And after this, we won't find such a record. We need to pass the full name, and only then will the record be found. This way, within each filter, you can change the query as you like. The same goes for sorting, sortable, then a callback, and you can build more complex sorting that will trigger when you sort a specific field. By default, it's just the field name, ID, ASC, desk, but through the callback, you can customize it. Okay, friends, we've figured out filters. The documentation also talks about apply. It just points out that it's no different from fields, and you should read about apply there, only instead of a model, it's a query builder. And another interesting section is save query state. Let's quickly see what it represents. Let's go back to the resource and set it to true. Okay, refresh the page, and let's go to, for example, a card and then back to administrators. And we'll see that we still have 3 filters. So, even though we've navigated to other pages, the filter state is preserved. For example, a moderator works with a specific entity, they've filtered the set of cards they want to work with, and so that they don't have to filter every time, so that it doesn't reset, so that they don't have to keep everything in one tab, you can save the state. You can calmly navigate, save, return, and everything will remain active. Finally, friends, I also want to touch on authorization and localization. Authorization is present in the resource, and it's very simple. You just specify the with policy property. And based on Laravel policies, here we see it, only a few new events have been added: restore, force delete, mass delete. Quick creation of these policies, how to work with them, how to add custom logic to the resource. All of this is present, plus there's a large authorization section, where it's duplicated, plus it explains how to add additional rules through packages via the provider. But the main thing, friends, is that this is done very easily, especially since there's a ready-made command, MoonShine policy, that will set everything up for you. Let's see how it works. For example, we have user resource, let's make user policy. Okay, we see that the policy has been created. It will be located in policies, like this. All the necessary methods are here, and all we need to do is go to the desired resource and set with policy to true. Our naming convention is followed, user resource, user, so the user policy will be found. If your naming doesn't match, then you manually register the model and policy through the service provider. All of this is in the Laravel documentation. After this, when you go to users, it will work. But if you change something in the policies, say, set view any to false, then you'll get a 403 error. This way, you can configure resource accessibility through policies. Okay, friends, and let's also take a look at localization. MoonShine is international. By default, only English is present, but there's also support for the Laravel Lang MoonShine package with many languages. And in the marketplace, if you go to localizations, you can also find the language you need. And creating your own won't be difficult. Just publish the existing English one and quickly rename all the values using AI. And then, in the config MoonShine PHP, simply specify the default locale, and through the locale key, specify all available ones. If your admin panel is multilingual, you can specify multiple languages that will be used. It's a simple thing, but you'll definitely use it. Overall, friends, I believe the main guide, the main quick start, is complete. But this doesn't mean I'm leaving you to self-study from now on. We still have a lot to cover. As I said, even 10 hours wouldn't be enough to tell you everything about MoonShine. So, after this main guide, there will be videos on specific topics. Let me give you an idea of what I'll prepare. I'll tell you in more detail about complex fields, when you encounter them. Simple fields you'll just create, field, make, everything will work. But there are complex ones where I'd like to explain in more detail what they represent. The same goes for components. There will be separate lessons on these. Also, model resource, tables. A huge section where you can configure the table directly from the resource however you like. At the very least, I'll definitely make a video about the lazy mode and explain it. The JSON field, I'll also talk about it and about relation repeater. I'll also tell you how to add your own styles, that is, in addition to the MoonShine build, how to add your own build to compensate for missing classes you need. There will be many videos about Alpine.js in MoonShine. I'll tell you about implementing soft delete, although there's already an article about it. And friends, much more in small guides. That's all for now. See you in the next video on the MoonShine Video Guides channel.